Okay, so we were discussing about how the organizations are driving or implementing DevOps methodologies or DevOps framework, right? Yesterday we discussed about how you can manage the AWS environment from the command line. So there are predominantly two major options that you might be using as the operations engineer. One is your AWS CLI and the Cloud Shell. See, without AWS command line interface or without understanding the commands that we can execute on AWS platform, you will not be able to do any automation. So scripting or automation, it depends heavily on the commands that we have on AWS CLI. Okay, so that is the fundamental DevOps use case or DevOps methodology that organizations are trying to implement or automate the manual task. The second important aspect is your infrastructure as a code, right? So when it comes to infrastructure as a code, I gave a small briefing, right? How infrastructure as a code came into place. So whenever there is a new requirement from the business, we used to have a um, application owner connecting with the business owner, understanding their requirements, and we used to create a code, and then we used to deploy that code as an application or program that can fulfill the business requirement. Right. Similarly, we have a requirement for our application to run some business application on top of AWS infrastructure, and whatever we are going to deploy on AWS platform, we will create that infrastructure set of infrastructure resources as a code, and then we will deploy it as a code. So this is the current practice that we have across organization. And when it comes to infrastructure as a code, there are multiple ways we can achieve this. So generally, if it is just, if your environment, if your organization is just using AWS only, then we can go with CloudFormation primarily. But then if in case if you're going with CloudFormation, we have JSON and YAML. These are the two templating languages that are generally used for deploying your template or code for AWS infrastructure resources. And similarly, like if you want to have your own programming language, or if you want to use your expertise in your programming languages like Java, Python, or .NET or TypeScript, you can also deploy the environment using Cloud Development Kit. Okay, so that is the second option. So we call it as CDK, and this is called AWS CloudFormation. We call it as CloudFormation templates. Okay, CFT or CF. So here, CDK, it leverages any programming languages that you are familiar with. Mostly people create their code using Python, Java, or .NET if you're from Windows background. And even you can use TypeScript, which is again more used on the scripting aspect, right? So you can use your own programming languages to develop the environment and deploy it as an infrastructure as a code, or you can use JSON or YAML templates. So these two are kind of called as templating languages. So templating languages are different from programming languages. So you can write application program using the same language, as well as you can deploy the infrastructure using the same programming languages. So not just the methodology or the framework, even some organizations are trying to unify the way that we manage it. So some organizations are trying to have one single application program or programming language used for both deploying infrastructure as a code as well as application as a code. But as on date, organizations are still leveraging the templating languages for the infrastructure and programming languages for their application program. But it's not that these languages can only be used for deploying application program. Even this can be used for deploying your infrastructure also using CDK. So CDK, again, it is a open source software development framework. Okay, but AWS owns this particular software product, and this is very helpful in deploying your cloud infrastructure resources as well as cloud application resources. So you can deploy both of them. And this is something for which you need a development skill. Okay, so we will not get too deep into that, but then we will get to understand more about AWS CloudFormation, which is for deploying your AWS infrastructure. And you can also use third-party tools like Terraform to deploy the resources. If you are having multi-cloud or hybrid cloud environment, then it makes sense to go for Terraform, because Terraform can be used for deploying resources in a cloud agnostic way. You can deploy resources for Azure, AWS, and other cloud, even for your on-premises. So these tools are used for achieving the DevOps methodology of deploying your infrastructure via code. Okay, so if you are deploying the infrastructure via code, you know what has been done to deploy this environment, and if there is some changes, or if in case you want to find out what you want to implement, it is very easier to track, and it is easier to roll back also. So nowadays, creating and managing resources using code or via template is what most of the organizations are trying to achieve, and many organizations are already following it for the last 3-4 years, right? And many of the organization will also uh, start implementing it if they are not currently using it. And the one more biggest advantage is that these infrastructure as a code can be very much integrated with your DevOps CI/CD pipelines like Jenkins or code pipeline or whatever tools you have in your organization. It can be very much integrated with your DevOps CI/CD pipeline, so that you can deploy the code through the DevOps pipeline as well. So coming to CloudFormation, so people call it as CFT, because like when whatever we are creating within CloudFormation, we call it as template, because we are reusing it for multiple subsequent deployments. So we create the template or script once, and then we start deploying the resources using that template again and again. So CloudFormation is a service to speed up your provisioning of infrastructure in AWS Cloud Platform. Okay, and this particular service as such is free. Okay, it's not chargeable. Okay, but then if you are using any cloud formation repository or cloud formation registry, and if you are trying to pull the resources from the centralized repository, then there is minimal charges for that. And even whatever resources you are deploying through this template, the EC2, the S3, those are all chargeable based on their pricing elements. But cloud formation as a service, it is used for speeding up the provisioning of infrastructure in AWS cloud platform. And not just provisioning, you can create as well as manage. So even after creation, you can go and change some configurations, or you can completely redeploy it within templates. So when we say template, okay, template, you know, right? It is used for reusable aspect. Okay, so template can be written in two different templating languages, JSON and YAML. So earlier, JSON used to be the predominant option. Even as on date, some providers like Microsoft Azure, they still use JSON templates for provisioning your templates in for provisioning your infrastructure resources using template. Whereas YAML is becoming more popular. The reason is, compared to your JSON, YAML doesn't have syntax, or it doesn't use flower brackets, open bracket, curly brackets, and all, and it doesn't. It is not as complicated as JSON. YAML is more into plain text, but both the languages are equally popular. The reason is like they are all human readable language. So okay, there was a small network glitch. Okay, so both the templating languages are popular. The reason is both of them are open standard format. And again, whatever we are writing in the code, it's all human readable text. Okay, anyone can read. So you don't need to learn any programming language or additional um, insights are not needed. You can just go and write it, and whatever we are creating, in general, right, the C programming used to have strings, but then after C sharp and the latest technologies, everything is creating infrastructure or application as an object. So even these template or the templating languages, it transmits data as objects. So that is main common. And again, you can deploy it on any OS. Okay, it's OS platform agnostic. All OS platforms are supported. And very important is that it doesn't occupy more space. Okay, it's very, very lightweight. And the code is consumes very less space. Okay, and within the code, whatever we write, everything is denoted in key value pairs. Okay, that is common in both JSON template as well as in YAML template. Whatever you write, it's in key value pair. For example, if when we discussed about tagging, we had the same key value pair, right? So, for example, environment, we used to have prod or dev or whatever, right? Similarly, we used to have name, first name, last name, city or town. So we used to provide the information in a key value pair format. Similarly, here Cloudformation templates, they provide all the resources in a key value format, and it is very, very easy to track whatever changes you are making in your Cloudformation template. And if you want to roll back to a previous state, it is pretty much easy to do that. So Cloudformation as a tool is free, and the resources deployed will be based on the pricing of the actual resources that we are creating. So these two scripting, I mean the templating languages, let me just, so those are all pretty much almost the content within that will be same. Only thing is the syntaxes and the curly brackets will not be different. I'll show you how to convert the YAML code to JSON code or JSON code to YAML code. There are a lot of tools that are available in the internet that can easily convert the format from one format to another format. You can convert it from JSON to YAML or YAML to JSON in a quick few seconds. Okay, a lot of options are there. And CloudFormation, it is providing you a common templating language that you can use for designing, provisioning, and managing both AWS resources, and also you can use this for deploying third-party applications from your marketplace. So very important is that it is not just only for AWS Cloud Platform products and services, even it can be used for designing. So there is a designer, I'll come to that portion shortly. There is a tool within your CloudFormation called Designer, can be used for designing the infra stack before deploying. And again, this particular CloudFormation can be used for designing, deploying, and managing the AWS and third-party resources from the marketplace. So what is the purpose of having this template? So mainly reusability is the use case. Okay, so once you deploy a particular infrastructure in a particular region or a particular AWS account, if you want to recreate the same environment in a different region or a different AWS account, you can just use the same code to quickly deploy the infrastructure again. So reusability or the repetitiveness. So you can just, what you can say, repeatedly deploy the infrastructure in a very consistent way. So if you have deployed something on your non-production environment like development or test, the same exact environment can be reciprocated in your production environment also. So that is the main challenge for your application team, right? So when the infra team is deploying something, so they might have tested it in a non-production environment, and suddenly when we go and deploy the same resources or application program in the production environment, you might see a lot of issues or complications coming around because of the inconsistent way of deploying things. But if you're going through a templated approach, if you are deploying the resources using these templating tools, then whatever you are deploying, it is exactly the same. So you are repeatedly deploying the same infrastructure. It is very predictable. So whatever you had in the non-production will be in the production environment also. So you'll get a predictable infrastructure. So you don't need not worry about the differences or inconsistency here. So it is very consistent across environment, and you can also manage it in a very automated way. As I told you, you can integrate these tools with CI/CD tool sets. Either it is native AWS code pipeline or third-party Jenkins or GitLab or whatever, you can integrate with those tool sets to deploy the infrastructure after the code is ready, after the template is ready. So it's a automation tool, it's a modeling tool, it's a designing tool, it's a scripting tool to deploy your AWS infrastructure. It can be one resource or multiple AWS resources. You can deploy it in a matter of a few seconds. So there are multiple terms that you have to be familiar with when you are learning CloudFormation. So this CloudFormation designer is a GUI option through which you can design and deploy. And when you are deploying it, you have to create certain things. Okay, so let me explain this. So within your CloudFormation, there are certain stuff that you need to be aware of. So whenever you are creating some infrastructure, either it is a single AWS resource or a multiple AWS resource, we first create a stack. Okay, we call it as a stack. So stack can be a single AWS product or resource, or a group of resources that forms the solution or the infra requirement. Okay, so it's primarily like mostly we call it as stack because like sorry, mostly we consider stack for group of resources, but it can be a single AWS resource also. Predominantly, it will be group of AWS resources that are deployed and managed as a single entity, or I would say single unit. Okay, there are some limitations with CloudFormation stacks. Okay, within a particular AWS account in a particular region, you can have a maximum of I'm not sure 250 or 300, but let's have some 200 stacks per account can be created, but you don't have to really worry about it. Okay, so it's a soft limit. You can go and work with AWS to create more stacks after increasing beyond the soft limit. So whenever you want to create set of resources in AWS platform, you go and create a stack, and that stack will deploy all the list of resources, whatever you have listed down in your template. So this stack will deploy all the AWS resources outlined or mentioned in your CFT. So CFT is CloudFormation template. Okay, then you have something called change set. Okay, this is very important from ITSM methodologies. In ITSM framework, you know, right, whenever you want to make some change to your environment, you go and create a change request, and then you capture what kind of changes you are going to make and what is the potential impact of making that change. And if in case you want to roll back or go back to the previous state, what are the options available? And this is what generally the change manager will review and approve the change request. So here, if you want to do a preview of what you want to execute or what you want to make as a change, okay, you can use this change set to go and look at the preview. Okay, so change set is not going to right away implement what you are going to implement, it is going to show you a preview, or yeah, I would say it's a preview. What are the changes that we are trying to make in the existing environment? Okay, so this can be a kind of complete update, or modify, or if you want to remove, or if you want to create additional resources, everything is a change, right? In a particular stack, if you want to make some operational changes, so you go and create a change set. So preview of what are the operational changes. Okay, preview of what are the changes that you're going to make is what you call change set. And here we also have something called drift. Okay, drift is difference between the actual environment versus what is mentioned in the template. Okay, so the drift will identify if something has changed in the recent past. So you see, mostly these things are very common in a new setup or a new environment, where the project team or the build team will go and deploy all the infrastructure using your template. But whenever there is a change that needs to be done, or whenever there is an urgent requirement, the operational team will go and make the changes directly on the infrastructure, instead of making the changes through the template and deploying the changes. Okay, so in such cases, what will happen is the template will be outdated, whereas the actual infrastructure might have got the recent changes done manually by the operations team. So to avoid that, generally we should have a strong implementation change procedure, so that whatever changes we are making, it has to be done through the infrastructure as a code. Okay, so here the drift option can be used to quickly identify what are the changes that is there in the actual environment compared to your template. I'll show you the lab here on how you can use the configuration drift. So mainly we call it as configuration changes, or the configuration drift between the actual environment and the template. So if you have a complex application infrastructure or environment, it involves multiple products and services, right? So you cannot go and quickly identify what is being changed or what has been updated. So drift helps you to quickly identify these things. And even the change set, see, before you go and make changes, so most of the deployed environments or complex, so you don't know what is going to happen if you go and deploy it. So this is going to help you with making right decisions, or understand what is the impact before you go and implement it. So this is a preview. Okay, so change set is going to tell you, if you are going and deploying this particular newly updated template, this is what is it is going to change, and it is very organized, and you can do it in a much safer way of deploying things. So change set is a preview. Before you deploy the changes, you can go and review it, and you can publish after you review it. There is a publish option, and you can use that for deploying after reviewing the impact or changes. Then comes your stack set. Okay, stack set. Some organization will have nested resources. One particular group of resources will be deployed, and there will be a overarching department, or a overarching set of management group. So there might be multiple sub applications, or you might have to create multiple stacks within your environment. So if you want to have a group of stacks created individually, but then you want to govern it, manage it through policies, you can have a stack set created for group of your stacks. Okay, stack set is group of stacks that can be managed, governed, and regulated using some policies and stuff. So whatever you have as a policy, as a configuration best practice, you can deploy it across your different stack. So mostly, like, we will deploy stack, but rare cases we will also have some organizations where we have to deploy stack set, which is group of stacks together combined to form a 3-tier application or a multi-tier application. So you might have to create, for example, each stack can be for each particular layer. So you'll have web layer, database layer, application layer created as a separate stack, but then for the entire application you will say all these layers or all these different containers belong to this same stack set. Okay, so sometimes you might have to do it in such a way that when you have multiple layers, you can create each layer using a separate stack and you can combine them using a stack set. Okay, whatever you are deploying, everything will have a Amazon resource name. That is the resource identifier that will be used for identifying your each and every resources. So in simple, CloudFormation as a tool, it's used for speeding up the provision of the infrastructure resources. I would say, let me make it a little more easier. So gives as an option to easily model and deploy the related AWS resources and third-party services in a predictable, consistent way. We can also manage the life cycle of the resource via infrastructure as a code. So CloudFormation is a tool. It's used for modeling, deploying, and managing the infrastructure in a very predictable and consistent way across different environments or across different region. If you are deploying the same thing, you can reuse the code. You can repeatedly use the same code for deploying it. So there are a lot of steps that you'll have to understand beyond this. So within the CloudFormation template, you have a lot of different uh, aspects or parameters that it can support. It can support arrays, it can support multiple strings, and so on. So I'll help you with understanding how you can create a code, how to deploy the stack using the template, and so on. So in general, so whenever you want to use the CloudFormation template or these components, whatever we are discussing, so what you have to do is first you have to create the code, and then this infrastructure as a code can be created from the scratch, or you can reuse existing templates, or you can store it in S3 bucket, or store it in centralized registry from where you can go and pick up the code. And as I told you, the infrastructure as a code can be created in YAML or JSON template, and you can store it in S3, or you can store it in your local disk, or you can store it in CloudFormation registry. There are a lot of sample templates that are already available, and once after you store the code in the local drive or S3 or registry, what you can do is you can deploy the code via code, and then you can also configure what kind of outcomes or outputs you want to get. So so output or outcome will be listing the important resources that were deployed. So I'll give you an example. I'll show you how this works. So for now, let's go and see some practical so that you have some basic understanding. Then we will continue with a little more use cases, benefits, and so on. So just give me a second. Okay. So if you go to your AWS login, you can just go and search for CloudFormation. Okay, it says creating and managing resources via templates, and it says stack sits in the export option. So if you look at here, it also gives you a designer option. But before that, we will go and look at what we have in the stack. Okay, if I go and create a new stack, there are three different options. So first option is you can locally store your template, or you can reuse your template. See, generally, you don't have to really start from the scratch. There are a lot of resources available on the internet. I will give you some examples here. So if you want to start creating the template, so go to Cloudformation. So any services you talk about, just say aws.amazon.com followed by the services. And if you want to get some resources, you can just say resources, and then you can search for templates here. So here you can get all the sample templates by each AWS services. For example, if you want to create some sample services, or if you want to create services for each and every different resources, you have everything kept here. Okay, you can just go and pick up this. So this is the first starting point where you can go and pick up some template references here. And here also you have some code examples. Okay, so you can also go and find out what are the different services you want to work. So if you want to work on a particular service like EC2 or S3 or DynamoDB or DocumentDB, you can just get that particular list of sample codes from here. So there are a lot of basics around each and every services. So first you go through the basics of that particular service, and then get into the details of each of the aspects. Okay, so don't start from zero. You have a lot of templates that are already available, so you can reuse the existing templates. See, generally what I do is I go and check whether AWS has already created these templates for their requirement. So all their requirements, AWS generally store it in GitHub. Okay, so if you go to GitHub under AWS Labs, you also have this sample Cloudformation templates. Okay, so here most of the templates, whatever the community and the AWS team is creating for each and every services, they have created the templates and kept it here. So you can better use this one, okay, compared to your examples in your internet. You can just reuse this particular AWS lab templates. Okay, so in simple, like you don't have to write anything from the scratch. So a lot of templates are available already here, and even there are certain resources you can deploy it directly from the documentation console. For example, if you're working for AWS government cloud, or if you're working for um, different China region or Germany region. So what you can do is you can just copy this, paste it, and then you can just say, see, here it is. So if you want to deploy something in AWS government cloud, so if you scroll down, you can see a lot of options are directly available here. If you want to deploy a EC2 instance with block device mapping, with multi-tier web application and VPC, a lot of reusable aspects are available here. If you want to deploy this in the general cloud, you also have options here. Okay, let me just put it here. Templates are available by region, and then you have it by environment, Go Cloud, or AWS China, and so on. Right, so you create the code from the reusable template, and then once after you have the code, you can just store them locally, and then you can upload it during creation, or you can store it in S3, or you can store it in registry, and then you can access it. So the next option you have is use a sample template. So if you go to sample template, there are certain samples that are available. So there are some simple templates and multi-AZ templates available. See, if you're going and deploying these resources, this might involve some charges for you. But if you want to practice without incurring any charges, then better you go and deploy these sample templates. So there are some samples that are also available. So this will help you to understand how this concept works. So if you look at the sample template option, it is already, these samples are getting stored in Amazon's S3 bucket. So Amazon has got a S3 bucket in each of the region. For each of the region, they have some template files stored in S3 bucket. So this is the location where it is stored. This is for each of the region, you will have separate templates. And you also have an option to go and design the resources that you want to create in template. Okay, you have the designer option where you can just go and design what is going to be deployed and get it created. So you can use three options. So you have sample options. You can create the template from scratch. Even when I say from the scratch, you can go and reuse a lot of resources that are already available per service, per region, or per service grouping. Okay. So now let me show you something which is much easier, and then we will get to understand further more things. See, when you're going to create the template for the first time, so you need to understand the structure of the code first. Okay, so generally the code carries a particular format, either it is JSON or YAML. Both of them have a similar structure. So your infrastructure as a code has to carry certain elements. See, whenever you are going and writing a document, either a design document or a SOP, it will have some structure, right? It will have some versioning, it will have some index, it will have some structure to your documentation. Similarly, any document or any content that you write, it has to follow a particular formatting to for number one, best practice, as well as you can have a standard across creating a lot of different documentation. So infrastructure as a code, it can also be considered as a document with a particular structure or a format. See, generally you go and whenever you go and write some application code or infrastructure as a code, it has to have a particular schema. Okay, this schema conveys what are the different capabilities that you are going to deploy, what are the different changes that you are going to deploy, and what kind of stuff that are getting created in this particular code. Next comes the version. What is the template version, and when exactly we are changing it? So versioning is important. So this is where you capture the date of creation or change that you have made. So this helps you to track the date and time of or what is the latest version and so on. So versioning is important. Then comes your description. So description is a plain text, or it's a kind of where you provide all the comments or remarks of what is the purpose of this particular code and what exactly it is going to create. Even sometimes what people will do is they will provide the link or location of where the latest code is stored. Either it is in a GitHub or in a registry or in a common shared location. They will provide where exactly the code is present in your description area. Then comes the section called metadata. Metadata is properties of the resources, whatever you are creating. So whatever EC2, it will have its own property, right? It will have the region, it will have the some of the tags that are getting created. So a lot of metadata will be there for each of your resources. There are dynamic values or dynamic inputs that you can provide called parameters. So when I say parameters, parameters is a big list. Okay, so your tags, your permissions, your notification option, or whatever the policies that you apply. So who can create and who can modify and all those stuffs. And even if you want to specify some policies and termination protection. So those are all some examples of parameters that you can apply on each of your resources. Next comes your mapping. So which resources are dependent on which resources. So you can have a static variables that links each of your resources that are getting created. Then these are all something which are options. Okay, so conditions are some people call it as conditions, some people call it as conditionals. Both are same. List of conditions or terms, conditions while creating the resources. So you can mention that this resource should get deleted if the entire stack is not getting created, or you can mention a condition stating that this resource has to get created after the elastic IP is reserved, or after the particular S3 bucket is created, then only you can have to copy the code, or you can write some conditions or statements that can mention when to create this, or what is the order of creation of this particular set of resources. So conditions are optional, and at the very end you will also see what are the different resources that are getting created. Okay, I can say conditions as rules. Finally, you have the outputs. Okay, so output is the list of the resources that got created. It will also have the Amazon resource name or the Amazon resource identifier details for each of the resources that has got created. So in a nutshell, okay, these are all some of the mandatory stuff that needs to be part of your infrastructure as a code. Either it is a JSON code or a YAML code, these things has to be there. And these are all something which helps you to standardize the way that you are creating the code. This way you can find out the latest version of the file. You can identify who created it, what is the description, what is the structure of this particular code, and how do we modify things on this. So these are all additional information that can help you to achieve best practices and find out the latest file, whatever you are using. And these are all the actual resources that are getting created, and this stuff or just giving you outputs on what are the outcome of the resources that has got created. So I'll show you some examples, so that way you will understand it. So let me show you some. So this is a sample template, right? I'm not sure how many of you have heard about this word lamp. So when I say lamp, so this is a Linux server which is going to have Apache web server for your web tier, and it will have MySQL or some database, and PHP or Python for your programming application layer. So it's a three-tier application on running on Linux server. So it can be a multi-AC deployment or a single AC deployment. So they are giving you different examples of sample. So it is going to create a three-tier application on a particular server. So if I go and copy the code, so there are two options here. There is a JSON format and there is a YAML format. So if I copy this JSON, see, suppose in your organization, if you have created the code in a JSON format, okay, so if you are created in a JSON format, you can easily convert that code online using there are hundreds of converters that are available. So JSON to YAML converter. So you can just go and paste it one side, and then see, the only difference that you will see is exactly the content, whatever we have is same in both of these. But then if you look at here, these flower brackets or these double quotes and these stuffs will not be there in your YAML code. So YAML code does not have a lot of syntax issues or a lot of stuffs. Instead of having all the flower brackets, curly brackets, it also have some kind of structure that is being followed. So they call it as what do you call, they also follow camel casing, and beyond camel casing they also have this spacing aspect. Okay, for example, if you are writing something within a particular structure, so all these have to start in the same space. Okay, so they call it as It's a good name. Okay, I forgot it, but it has to follow a particular indexing pattern. Okay, so you have to have double space here. So it cannot be single space. So here it will be four spaces. So two spaces from each of the line will be followed. Okay, so here you will have two spaces. If you are creating some additional structure within the nesting, something within that, you can follow four spaces. And similarly, if you are nesting something within this, you'll have six spaces. So you'll have, okay, this is called indentation. Okay, so I got the name. So indentation is important in YAML scripting, but in JSON, indentation is also followed. Plus, it also have a lot of stuffs like curly brackets, double quotes, and all those things are there. It has to have a certain, it looks more like a programming code, but YAML is doesn't have a lot of syntax and stuff, but both of them has to have indentation. Indentation is having spaces for each of the lines here. So it'll have two spaces. Is what spacing is very important in YAML. Okay, I'll also give you some briefing about JSON versus YAML so that you can decide which one you want to use. Okay, I'll just keep this indentation spacing. Okay, I'll come to this comparison shortly so that you can decide which one to use. But there are a lot of tools available. If your organization is currently using JSON, you can come to online and change it, or even you can change it within the Cloudformation designer itself to change it. See on the left, they have also given some examples, which I will copy and have it here. When we discuss it, we will add additional stuffs to this discussion. Okay, fine. We will come to this comparison shortly. But before that, you also have an option here to change the templating language from one language to another language. And whatever resources that is going to get created using this template, you can see that it has got a structure here. I will come to the sheet here to show you the sample. See, generally, when you are writing this code, definitely you can use your notepad. But when you're putting it in your notepad, when you're putting it in your notepad, it doesn't have a easier way to identify the structure or go and rectify issues here. And you can also definitely use notepad plus plus, but again it is also not that good as the coding tools. But if you are using Visual Studio Code, or if you are using some Eclipse or tools like that, it can be much good for your templating language. See here, it also gives you some kind of alignment. So it tells you like how the contents are aligned, whereas you can check the indentation, and you can check whether the code has got all the open brackets and close brackets. So it gives you some better structure compared to your notepad. Notepad plus plus is better than your notepad, but in reality, most of the developers or the DevOps engineer, they will use the Visual Studio Code for deploying your resources. Okay, let me show you this. So once after you open the Visual Studio Code, so you can go and create the file. And when you are creating the new text file, okay, so you can see that it gives you an option what kind of stuff you want to create, whether it is a YAML file or a JSON file. You can just select you are going to create a new file which is JSON built in, or when you're going and saying new text file, it also gives you an option to select the language here. You can just say JSON or whatever stuff you want to create, you can select it so that the code gets better aligned based on the language of your choice. So now if I go and copy paste this, you can see that it gives you a very good coloring, and also it gives you the structure very much in a very easily readable way. So I'll help you understand this. See, if you go to this particular code, one second, it is just loading. See if I can give you the example sample here. See, for this code, you have the entire code within this open bracket and closing bracket. And if I open that, within that structure, you have multiple things like parameters, mapping, you have the outputs, resources, and so on. So let me just show you. So this is the structure of the overall code that I was explaining. So this is what I was telling you. So each and every template will have a schema. So it says like what is the template version, when it was created, and what is the purpose of this template. It says like it is going to create a EC2 instance, and it will have a local MySQL database for your database storage layer, and it will also have Apache for your web layer and so on. And within that, what are the different resources that are getting created? So it is going to create a EC2 instance. It is going to have a index.html page for your front end. And below that, you can see it is also going to install some packages for your web server database, and for your application layer, it is going to install some packages. And below that, you can see that it is going to do some additional configuration within your stuff, and it is also going to create a security group. So this way it helps you to identify what are the different stuffs that are getting created. See, within this particular EC2 instance, so there are only two elements. If you go and look at the resources, so it is going to create a web server instance, and it is going to create a web server security group. Only two resources are getting created, and within that you have the lot of configuration information of your each and every resources. So once after the resources are created, it also tells you what is the URL link to access that particular LAMP stack. You can also add additional things. Just mention like what is the EC2 instance name, what is the EC2 security group name. You can add additional outputs. This is just for your quicker identification of the resource ID or the resources that got created. So output is what is the outcome of the template that we have created. So this way, in Visual Studio Code or the tools that you have for your templating languages, it will be much easier to understand the structure, and you can also find out if a particular stuff is missing, or if there is some errors in this particular tool. This itself will tell you where are the errors, which line has got the issues, and so on. So you can fix the issues even before you go and add it in your Cloudformation template. So these are the stuffs that I was telling. So it will have a version, it will have a description, it will have a list of parameters that you are creating. So for each of your resources, so it is asking for the name, database name, the key pair name. So whatever information that you are going to provide, so all these information will be asked under the parameter section. So I'll come to the best practice, how you can use the parameter section and how you can use the other section. So if you look at here, so these are all the commonly used ones, but mandatory parameters is mandatory, and the resources are mandatory. Rest of the things, it depends on case to case. Based on your requirement, you can include and exclude them. So whenever you are doing some infrastructure as a code, always use tools like Visual Studio Code that can help you to understand the entire structure of the code, and you can also follow the best practices. Syntax error and all those stuffs can be quickly checked here. You can also add a lot of extensions for AWS and other stuffs in Visual Studio Code that can help you to directly deploy the code from your Visual Studio code itself through CI/CD integration. So coming back to the structure of the code, now you might have some better understanding on what are the different structure within your code you have. So either it is JSON or YAML, it will have this particular structure. And metadata parameters, these stuffs are mandatory for your deployment, whereas the outputs, version, schema, description, these are all something which you can have for better structure and best practices standards. Okay, let's go and try and create the resource here and then see what happens. See, on the CloudFormation designer, you will get to see what are the different resources that are getting created. So let me change the template name, stan-lamp. So this will show you the diagrammatic view on what are the resources that are getting created. So let me. Okay, so it is saying that it is going to create a web server instance and it is going to create a security group. So this is what I was showing you, right? It is going to create two different resources, one web server instance and one security group to control the ports and IPs which can access the web server instance. It is going to create only two main resources, and this instance is going to get linked to security group. I'll also show you how you can create from the scratch after deploying this. So once after you have verified it, you can just go and check whether there are any issues and stuff, or else if there is no issues, you can go and create the stack and it will start creating the resources. Okay, so it has created the stack with the changes that we have made. It has added the stan-lamp into this particular naming so that it is easily identified. Now you can also store your code in your Git or GitHub, and you can directly deploy the resources directly from your Git repository. That option is also available. So here I'm just going to go with this stuff. Let me click on next. So it is going to ask me certain things. Okay, so if you look at here, these are the stuffs which we have under your parameter section. So these things you can mention it now, or you can also refer this later also. So these are the stuff that you have to provide while you're creating the stack. So whatever you are mentioning under the parameters, those information you have to fill in as part of the stack creation. So you can give a name for the stack. That is the first thing they've asked for it. So name of the key pair, name of the database root password. So all these information, whatever under the parameter, you have to fill in here. So I will just give it a name. I will just say lamp stan or stan lamp stack. Okay, and then I can just give a name for the database. I can leave it default. If I want to give some password, I can give some password. I can just say password. Okay, I can just give some root password here, and for DB user I can just give a DB username. And if you want to create a T2 medium or different instance type, you can select it, and you can also give a key pair name. If you want to use the one which you created yesterday, you can use that. And then if you want to allow SSH from entire internet, you can give the entire internet, or you can give the specific IP range that can be used for managing the LAMP server. Okay, this is the security group rule that it is going to create. So these are all the stuff which you have defined in your parameter section, and that is the reason it is asking what is the database name, the database user password, the root password, from where you are going to access. All these information under a parameter will be asked as part of your LAMP stack creation. So if you want to add additional stuff that needs to be provided as part of your creation, add it under parameter section. Okay, so give it next. And then if you want to give all this metadata like tagging or there are a couple of important things. So tag is something which will get attached to your resources that are getting created. So all the resources that are getting created will have this tags. So you know the tags, right? So you can give some specific details, department, marketing, or you want to just say cost center is marketing cost center, or if you want to provide environment, it's a production environment or deployment. So whatever you want to give as a tag, all these tags will get applied to your resources. So these are all metadata information. So let me give something to marketing. So whatever resources that are getting created, it has to go to marketing xxx whatever 123 cost code. If I want to give some environment, I can just say this is belonging to production environment or development or whatever. And permission, see this permission is interesting. So there are two aspects. One, you can create a separate, create a IAM role that has the required permission to create the resources listed in the stack. So you ideally, so in this particular case, you should have a IAM role that has the permission to go and create a EC2 instance and create a security group. Those are the two permissions that are needed. Else, it will use the identity of the logged in user. Okay, so if I'm logged in with my ID stan or root or whatever, so that ID will be used if you're not specifying the IAM role. So that is what they have mentioned here. So choose the IAM role for CloudFormation to use for creation the stack, or else it will automatically use the ID that we have used that you have logged in. Okay, so you can do either of that. If you have created a separate IAM role, go and select that IAM role. So it is giving us option if the stack creation is failing, what is the task it want to do, whether it want to roll back the complete deployment or whether you want to preserve the provision resources, and if you want to delete it manually later, you can also do it. So it depends on case to case. So if you want to stack failure, so you can roll back it, or you can go and preserve the resources that you have created so that you can go and manually delete them, or you can go and check it and then redeploy only the resources that were having issues. So either way you can do it, but the best practice is to roll back the entire thing and recreate it from the scratch. That is what I would prefer. Okay, instead of having partial resources and fixing the issue, you can just completely roll back. That is the default setting and the best practice. You can also delete newly created resource alone if you are doing a change set, or if you are just making some changes, you can use the rollback procedure. Now, under the advanced option, you can also mention some policies. For example, whether you want to avoid changes or avoid termination protection. So, if you want to have protection against changes, or if you want to specify what what instance type are allowed, or if you want to specify what version of databases are allowed, or what versions of products are allowed. So you can mention all those organization policies and best practices here so that you can avoid deploying resources which are non-standard from your organization. So you can also integrate with policies, and you can mention what are the different policies you want to apply. And here you can also go and notify if there is a particular email ID or a team or a group which needs to be notified after successful creation. You can also add a SNS topic and do a notification to them. Or you can deploy, you can send it to a distribution list or a single email ID. Finally, you have your stack creation option. What are the different timeout you want to set, how long you want to allow this and stuff. Finally, you have your termination protection. If you want to avoid these resources getting terminated or deleted, you can also go and have a read-only or termination creation. Okay, by default it is disabled. You can leave it as such. So the template is now ready. You can review whatever stuff you have made, and see here. I think there is one option where you can go and find. Let me see. So I will explain about the change set. Okay, so but let me create this now. So it says parameter db password failed to satisfy constant, must only contain alphanumeric characters. Okay, so in my input, whatever I gave as a password, it is not obeying the requirement. So I have to give something which is not having special case. Okay, so let me change the password. So it gives you the error there only. Okay, so let me try to give next, then see if the error goes off. Yeah, so it has succeeded now. So whenever you are giving password, don't give anything beyond alphanumeric. It doesn't accept it. So here, as part of the LAMP creation, you can see the events getting listed under the events event tab or event section. So you will have to find out the latest timestamp status. Okay, so you will see the creation has started, creation is in progress, and then creation is complete. So don't worry about the old historical events. Whenever you initiate it, if you refresh it, you'll start seeing new logs here. So there will be multiple create in progress, but you need to find out the latest status for each of your parameters. For example, there are two elements that are going to get created in this particular code. One is your uh, web server security group, and the second one is your web server instance. You need to go and find out those two resources status only. So you have to find web server instance, web server security group, latest status. Go and find the latest timestamp and then find out whether it has got successfully created or not. So web server security group is created successfully, whereas the web server instance is still in progress. If you refresh, you have to refresh it and then find out the events. Events will get populated little slowly. You also have an interesting option called detect root cause. Whenever there is an issue, you can go and find out what is the root cause of the error or the issue. I'll show you that shortly. Okay, it will take a couple of minutes. I can also show you that. So if you go to EC2 console, you will see that the security group has got created. Okay, see, it clearly shows that security group name is stan-lamp stack. It is a web server security group created with a unique ID. Okay, it has created it. And whatever we have given, right, we have allowed SSH from all the different internet. So that is what it has allowed. Okay, perfect. So let's give a time to find out whether the EC2 instance getting created. Yeah, Stan LAMP stack creation is complete. The web server instance is also done. Web server security group is also done. So when all the resources are done, then the entire stack will get status complete. So always refer to the latest timestamp and the status. Don't worry about these things. These are all events that were in progress earlier at that particular point of time. So just refer to the logical ID of the resources that you are creating and then find out whether the status was complete or not. Then overall, the entire stack creation status. And if you come to the resources, you can find out what are the two different resources created and their physical ID. What are the AWS, Amazon ARN ID details will be available here. So you can see the resource ID for each of your thing, and you can also find out copying this. You can go and search for the respective stack, or you can also click on this link. It will take you to that particular system. So here also you can click on this. It will open up in a new tab the exact EC2 instance that has got deployed. And here you can go and check the status, whether the 2x2 checks are passed and the system is ready for access and so on. So all these things you can check it here. Okay, and if you want to try accessing the website, you can also go and copy this IP address and access whether the LAMP stack is created and the web server is available. So it will take a couple of minutes for the web server to load. So either you can find out the IP and access it, or what you can do is you can go to the output. So here you can see the link of that particular EC2 instance. You can also go and open it in a new tab. So either you can access it from the EC2, the what you call the FQDN, or you can use the IP address directly to access it. See, you can see that it has deployed a PHP sample application, and this is the time in the location where we have created the instance. And then what are the default content it is available. It is showing me the default PHP LAMP stack. So this is the way you can go and try and create it, and the output, whatever we have mentioned, that is what is showing. So within your output, so I've asked it to show the URL of the created stack. So it has given us the URL through which you can access the entire LAMP stack URL. So it has given that under the output. Now, if I want to make some changes or updates, what I can do is I can show you something here. So just for an example, okay, as an operations team was asked to do some changes. Okay, let's say like the operation team has made some changes on this LAMP stack security group. So they have went ahead and added an inbound rule. They have added a rule, for example, let's say they have allowed all traffic from the internet, and they have also added one more rule where they have allowed HTTPS traffic. Okay, so I've added two rules manually to show you how you can find out these changes. Okay, so someone from the operations team has changed the actual resources that was created, not through the template. So ideally, they should have come to the stack info and they should have modified the stack, but they have changed it on the actual resources manually. If someone has changed that, so how do we find out what has been changed and who has changed it? So come to the stack options. Okay, and under the stack options, you can go and detect the drift first. Okay, so drift detection is what you can do. So it will go and initiate the drift detection, and after a couple of seconds, it will find out what are the drift it has made. Okay, so I'm just showing the demo for this. So I've already shown the demo for how to create a stack and deploy it. Now we are finding out the drift of the created resources. Once after you have detected the drift, you can go and view the drift result here. So it will clearly tell you that the AWS instance has not got modified. There is no changes. It is in sync. But the second logical ID, the second resource, which is web server security group, someone has modified the resources manually, which is not in sync with your template. So you can go and click on this particular drift result, and then you can go and click on the view drift details, and it will show you what has been added in that particular security group. They are clearly saying that there is a inbound rule, ingress rule, which is inbound rule has been added to allow port 443 from the internet, one, and then they have also created one more rule to allow all the IP protocols ingress from the internet. So there are two rules that has been added or modified in your security group rules. So this is what is being expected from your code, but then in reality they have added these two things. So they have allowed 0.0.3 for HTTPS, and they have also given a rule, created a rule that allows everything from the internet. Okay, there are two different stuff that has been added. So you can compare the code, and then you can check the drift, what has been changed. So this way, infrastructure as a code helps you to find out what has changed, who has modified, and what was the drift time, when was this particular change made, and all those things can be easily identified. So you can detect the drift for each and every resource, or you can also detect the drift for the entire code, whatever we have got. Now you can go and fix the issue by redeploying it. So let me show you how to do that. So go to change set. You can create a change set, and then you can use the current template, or you can replace the template, or you can edit the template in the designer, whatever stuff. You can just go and use the existing template. So here I can, okay, so this is fine. So what I'm trying to make changes here is I want to change the database name. For an example, I want to make changes to the database as a stand database. And then I want to make the size from T2 small to T2 medium. Click next. And I want to add a new tag. I'll say the resources. So let me also check whether the tags were applied to both security group as well as instances. So the tag should be applicable for both of them. Perfect. Okay, it has created all the tags. Even for your security group also, you should see the tags. So whatever the tags you are giving, it will be applied for all the resources that you have created in that stack. Okay, so yeah, it has applied for all the resources, both the resources. Now coming back to the change set. So I'm just trying to add one more thing. I will say location as East US, something like that. And then now I will just go and click on next. So at the beginning, this change set will not go and get deployed. Okay. So if you look at here, it is going to show you a preview. Click on submit. Okay. So it is going to go and find out the changes. So it is saying whatever the changes you have made, it is going to modify the web server instance as well as the web server security group. So you have also go and check what kind of inputs you have given, or what are the different stuffs you are making changes. Okay, go to the input and then find out what are the different stuffs that you are planning to change here. Okay, so give it some time. It will show you the changes. So once after you are comfortable with what you are planning to change, you can go and execute the change set. Okay, it will take a couple of minutes. Yeah, so now you can see that there are some changes that has been identified, and what are the changes that it is going to make. You can look at the JSON file here, or you can also go and find out the template and see what kind of changes it is going to make, and you can review all the changes. There are two changes it is going to make is what it is showing, and then if you are happy with that, you can just go and execute the change set. So generally, this is how you can make changes to your existing stack. So if you want to change something, or if you want to upgrade, or if you want to add some additional rules, you have to go and update the template and then execute the change set. So change set is modifying the existing stack. Okay, and drift is finding out what is the difference between the actual template and the environment that has been deployed. Okay, let this take its time and create it. I'll also show you how to use the Cloudformation designer to create a new stack from the scratch. So any questions so far? We'll take a small break. It's already 11. See, most of the organizations are heavily using this cloud formation. So you also have to practice this cloud formation at least a few times to make yourself comfortable. So you don't have to memorize anything, or you don't have to write anything from scratch on these days, because you have a lot of samples for each and every service, and a lot of different examples for each and every application. You just have to take the code and try to append or modify based on your organization requirement. Okay, if there are no questions, I'll start the timer for 10 minutes. So I'll stop recording for 10 minutes and we'll come back. So before the break, we were discussing about how to create a stack, how to create a change set, and how to find out the drift on the stack that has been created. And when you're going and creating CloudFormation, there are primarily two options. Either you create the template using JSON, JavaScript object notation, or you create it using YAML. See, mostly these two languages are more or less the same when it comes to the open source, as well as the it's a plain text, okay, through which we are creating it. Certain things are different. For example, if you're talking about JSON, comments are allowed in certain versions, or in current spec, whereas it used to be allowed earlier, but then you can add comments in YAML. So what you have to do is, like your scripting language, you can add a hash, or you can add a number sign, and then you can add the comments within your YAML file. So comments are denoted within a hash or number sign, and here you also have a very good hierarchical arrangements in JSON. See, if you go to JSON, you can have nesting of objects. So within resources, or within your each and everything, you can have resource organized in a very hierarchical way. So you can have the objects as well as the arrays created. So when I say array, for example, in this system, I want to deploy all these code, right? So all these application packages has to be deployed. So let me just show you here. See, if you look at the YAML thing, all the arrays are mentioned using hyphen. Okay, so arrays and objects can be hierarchically arranged in both your JSON as well as on your YAML, but there is a way how you denote them in each of the code. Okay, so here, hierarchically arranged. In JSON, we use okay, so here mostly we use indentation. Indentation. Okay, indentation means we'll have some couple of white spaces. See, when you're writing the code, let me show you some example here. See, for each of your code, for your parameters, it starts from the first column here, and if you want to specify something within that parameter, you have to give double white spaces. Okay, that is what we call it as indentation. And within the key name, if you want to give something, you have to give four white spaces, so it has all the even numbers of white spaces that you need to do. So that is what we call it as indentation. So here also you can see that it is having two white spaces, and here we have four white spaces that has to be followed across each of your array element or your hierarchy. So in YAML, we have to closely follow on the indentation or the white spaces. So it has to be even numbers. So you can have 2, 4. So it can start with 0 and then 2, 4, 6, 8, and so on. So if you want to hierarchically arrange them, you can arrange it. So here, the way if you write in JSON, as I told you, it has got braces, brackets, and so on. So if you want to denote an array in JSON, so this is how you generally give it. So the entire array will be in a bracket, and within that, for example, if you want to have first, second, or some names, so you will have like this, 3 or something like that. Okay, just for an example. So it will have the brackets and braces used for double quotes used for array. Whereas here in YAML, you will have the array mentioned like this. First, second, third, and so on. So this is how it is being used in YAML. YAML will have hyphen followed by the value to denote the array in YAML. In JSON, you'll have the braces or the brackets to collectively store them using a comma separated value. Okay, again in objects, there will be some small differences here. There will be double quotes and flower brackets if you are specifying the objects here. So let me give you some example. So this is how it will look like. It will have sample objects. So it will have flower brackets followed by the values. And then it will have a comma at every end of the line wherever you are specifying the values. And it will have again double quotes. Everything will be in key value pair. Okay, either it is YAML or JSON. So both of them follow the same thing. And whatever number of brackets you have opened, so those brackets has to be closed at the end of the particular object code. So here I have opened two brackets, two flower brackets, and then I have to close both the braces here. So here in YAML, the same object or information will get mapped like this. So you will have something like this mapping. You will just say double white spaces, and then you will have a colon 1, and then you don't have to give anything like double quotes or whatever. You just have to specify the value in a key value format. Okay, that's it. Okay, so YAML is more simplified in a way that you just have to follow the white spaces and the indentation here, whereas in JSON you have to look at the double quotes, the comma, and then the braces, the brackets, everything has to be properly looked upon in your JSON. So JSON is little more aligned to programming, whereas YAML is more plain text and so on. And again in JSON, it supports very less data types. If you talk about JSON, the data types that are supported are you can give numbers, you can give strings, you can give objects, you can give arrays, and so on. But then if you talk about your JSON, it supports more data types. So beyond numbers, strings, objects. So your JSON will not support null values. Here you can give empty values also. You can also give yes or no or Boolean values. You can also give dates. You can also give timestamps. So your YAML supports more data types. You can also have sequences. You can have nested values. So this is not ending list. This is a never ending list. It goes on and on. So in simple, like the most common data types are supported in YAML compared to JSON. So YAML and JSON both are lightweight, both are open source, both are human readable data representation language. Both of them are used for templating, but there are some minor differences how they are being created and how we are specifying the information within that. So you can choose either of them. Okay, I won't say choose this and other ones. So you have to understand how you have to specify each of the things. Generally we play around with arrays, objects, and one more thing we will generally deal with is the strings actually. So strings are generally represented as double quotes in your quotes are optional, but we can still use single or double quotes. If it is single word, you can use single quotes. If it is a multiple word, you can use double quotes in your YAML, but it is optional. So here strings should be in double quotes. So you can see that all the values that we are mentioning in strings, I'm just giving the double quotes here. So double quotes is mandatory for all the strings that you are mentioning in your JSON. So this is how you can differentiate. You can use a lot of numbers and stuff. So floating point numbers can be used in JSON, whereas YAML has built-in support for integers, floating point, octal, hexadecimal numbers. So YAML has more support, more data types, and you don't have to really worry about flower brackets, quotes, double quotes, and all those things in YAML. It is more plain text compared to JSON. So you can choose either of them, okay, based on your interest. Now let's go and try and see how you can deploy the code from the scratch, how to create the resources from the scratch, and see some examples there. So if you go to CloudFormation, earlier we created using a sample stack. Now if you want to create something from the scratch, you can go and create a stack with new resources standard. You can also import the resources whatever is already existing in the environment. Now if I want to start it from the scratch, I can type the code in my Visual Studio Code, and then I can copy paste it here. That is one option. Or else you can go to the designer, CloudFormation designer. Here you can create a designer template in the designer. So for example, if I want to create a EC2 instance or S3 bucket or whatever, I can go and search for that particular resource. It is pretty straightforward. Okay, I'll show you some example. So let's say if I want to create a EC2 instance, I can just drag and drop what I want to create. So here I can just copy the EC2 instance, and I can give a name for the EC2 instance. I can just say stan EC2 stan instance 01, and then this will get outdated, and you can just refresh to update the name here. So if I just refresh it, so first save this, refresh it, and you can see the name has changed here. You can also change, or you can zoom in if in case you want to. So after you zoom in, if I want to add some additional resources, for example, EC2 instance cannot stay alone, right? It needs to have a key pair. If I want to put the key pair, I can put the key pair and give it a name. And if I want to create some network interfaces, I can go and attach a network interface. And if I want to put them in a placement group, or if I want to integrate with some security groups or whatever, I can also add that. So whatever resources you want to add, you can put them all here. And then when you are linking them, so what you have to do is you have to go and check the different properties here. So here I can see this is for image. So this is for your subnet. This is for your security group. So what you have to do is you have to link it with the respective resources. So you have to select the specific property here. Okay, if you are going to deploy this EC2 instance from a specific image, you can go and specify the image ID. If you want to specify a security group, you have to specify the security group. So let me go and change the name if I want to. So I can just say stan instance security group 01. So you can use the default also. Similarly, I can just go and link the network interface. This is availability zone. This is host. This is network interface. So I can just go and link this to network interface. So go and link the exact property with the exact resource. So here I need to go and find out the key pair. Or else what you can do is you can link it from here, this side. Either way is fine. So here you can just go and click on this particular instance. Image, subnet, depends on volume, host, availability zone, network interface. Okay, then I can link all of them, but then you have to use this correct property to link them. Okay, so that is where sometimes you will make mistakes. So once after you create all the template, you can select whether you want to go with JSON or YAML, and then first save them. Okay, so this is a new template. So here you can go and find out what are the different metadata we are providing. So most of them, whatever we have created, all of them are under your parameters. Let me refresh. Okay, so security group. This is your instance. So instance name, security group name. So you have the key pair. I can also change the key pair. I will just say Stan December 2023 key pair. So you can specify all of them and then go and save it as a new template, or you can also go and open up a new sample template and then edit it based on your requirement. So you can just go and save it. There are two options. You can save the template locally in your local disk machine, or you can put it in your Amazon S3 bucket. I can just say stan EC2 template and then save it in your Amazon S3 bucket. So your Amazon S3 bucket has been used to store this template. So this is how you can create a EC2, but I can also show you something more. I can just go and clean up everything. And if you want to create something like, let's say, okay, let's say Amazon S3 or whatever, you can go and create a Amazon S3 bucket. Okay, give it a name, stan S3 bucket 0001, and then save it. So it is pretty straightforward. If I just go and refresh it, it can show update the name here. And if you want to change some properties of this, you can also change it if in case you want. And then you don't have to really save it in a bucket before you want to deploy. You can also directly go and create the stack also. So if I just say create the stack, and then it will go and create a REST3 resource using that template. So if you want to store it and do it, that is also fine. So if the template is ready, you can directly go and view it in designer and modify it again. If you click on next, it will ask for the stack name. I can just say stan S3. And then if you want to add some additional tags and stuff, you can change it. So the template is ready and it is ready for deployment. If you want to add something, you can add it, or you can just directly go and submit it. Okay, so now it will go and create a S3 bucket with the name that I have given. Okay, just go to S3 and then see if something is getting created. So either you can store it in your local machine or in your S3, or even you can check into your JIT and then store it from there. So here it is going to create your S3 bucket. So there is a Cloudformation template S3 bucket that has been created to store the template that I have created for my EC2 template that is available here. And similarly, it will also create the S3 bucket now. See, stan S3 bucket 0001 has been created just now at 11:25, 42 seconds just now. Okay, now my time is 11:26, so it has just got created here. So this is how you can directly create the resource. And if in case I want to modify it or delete it, generally you should delete it from the stack only, so that the stack will be used for creation as well as you can use it for delete. So if I delete the stack stan S3, it should obviously go and delete this resource. Okay, so just be aware of this. So people will make mistake. They will think it is not going to delete the actual resource. So when you're going and deleting the stack, it is going to actually delete your actual resources also on your environment. If you're updating something, it will go and update the resources there. So if I say delete, it is going to delete that particular resource, whatever I have here. See, it has deleted that. So it will be much faster compared to your normal graphical way of creating. So the infrastructure as a code has a very high priority in your orchestration tool in AWS platform. So the creation and the deletion or modification will be much faster. So now you can see the delete is done. But if in case you are getting something, you can detect the root cause, or the reason will be much clear. For example, let me show you something. Mm, Okay, so let me go and create using the existing resources. Let me go to that template. So suppose if I want to create some, see, I have not stored that S3 thing, right? Okay, so I should have stored that S3 template, but let me just do one thing. Okay, go to this. Okay, click next. Try to create it. Submit. So what it says, an error occurred while attempting to create this tag. So I have not given any name for that, right? Or I have not made any changes. So let me do one thing. Let me just quickly create something new. Okay, all these are higher examples. Designer. So if you want to practice it, try creating the resources whichever you are familiar with, so that you understand what are the different stuffs you are coming across. So let me just create it. So it will create with the default name. So you can go and verify whether the template is valid or not by validating this template option. You can go and click on this. This will go and create the stack, and then it will create a new S3 bucket. So what I'm trying to show you is, let me give you this S3 create. So once after I've created it, I will just go and add some content. You know that whenever you're creating an S3, it has got some limitations, right? For example, if your S3 has got some content, it will not allow you to delete it from the CloudFormation stack. So let's see what kind of error it shows. The error, the root cause, and all, it will be very clear in your CloudFormation. I'll show you that. So here I will see the new bucket getting created with stan-s3, this one. So let me go and upload some sample files. Whatever content you want to put, you can just put it there. Go to my desktop, see if there is any sample files. So desktop. So stan demo. So let me put some text file here. Okay, just upload it. So now I've got some files. So if I go and trigger the CloudFormation template to delete it, it will not allow me to delete it because it has got some content within that. So if I just say delete, let's see if it is allowing me to delete. Now I'm expecting some errors here because the S3 bucket is not empty. So as per AWS, if an S3 bucket is not empty, it should not allow to go and delete the resource. See, the delete is failed, and it will clearly show the exact details. The bucket you try to delete is not empty, so always go through the status reason very clearly. Okay, it will be very detailed, and it will also give you what is the relevant CloudTrail log ID, what is the request ID, and what is the details you can go and find out. So you can copy this request ID and then go to the CloudTrail or the logging tool and then find out what is the reason, and you will get more details there. But here itself you can see that it has clearly given the message that the bucket you tried deleting is not empty, and that's the reason it is not able to delete it. So you can also go and detect the root cause here. It says this is the root cause. This is the line item which you need to go and read it. So if you just say detect root cause, see in an environment, you might have multiple infrastructure resources getting created, hundreds of resources might get created. So you don't know which is the most important root cause of this particular activity getting failed. So if you want to find out the likely root cause, you can detect the root cause and it will clearly tell that. So go and read this line item, and this status reason will clearly give you the um, reason for why you are not able to complete that activity. So let me try to delete this and then see if I am able to successfully do that now. So we already tried doing it. It was successful. Now let me fix the root cause. So now let me try it. So it is asking me resources to retain. It is asking like there is some stuff that is there. I can retain it, but see it is giving me the option to retain that particular S3 bucket if in case I want to. I don't want to do that. Let me delete it. So let me refresh. This time it should be successful. Delete should be complete. 11:33. Delete is successful. So this is how you can find out the root cause, the reason. The detect root cause option also gives you the exact timestamp and the event, which is more suitable or most likely reason for the activity getting failed. So this is like change. Cloudformation is completely being used heavily in many of the organization. So as a AWS operations team or a DevOps engineer, definitely you need to have good understanding of the CloudFormation as well as the structure that we have to follow while creating it. So here I explained about the structure. So how the template looks like, what are the mandatory information and what are the optional things. So try to limit the amount of parameters that you are giving. So when I say try to limit, whatever you can specify under conditions or metadata, you can give it there, because whatever you are giving under parameter, the code will run again and again. So for example here, if I specify something under parameters, okay, so if I give many items under your parameter section, what will happen is the number of times the code runs will be multiple things. So for each parameter, the code will run the entire time. So if you are specifying more parameters, the time it takes to complete the code or create the infrastructure will be more. So try to limit the usage of parameters as much as possible, and then try to use the other status like metadata and something to reduce the runtime of your infrastructure as a code deployment. And here, all the templating languages usage uses camel casing. So when I say camel casing, so if you look at here, this is not one word, right? So this is like AWS template, format, version. These are all four words combined together. But when they combine them, they give uppercase for the first alphabet or the first character in that second word or in the third word or fourth word, whatever. So this is what we say it as camel casing. So camel casing is used in both YAML as well as in JSON. So if you look at here, AWS instance type, they have merged them together. Instead of giving it AWS instance type, they are using camel casing to merge them together, and to denote that is a separate word, they are using this uppercase for the second word or the third word that they have merged together. So output values are optional, and the parameters you have to mention it, and the list of AWS resources you have to mention it, and the version numbers and versions are for your betterment. So you can mention it to have good understanding. So nowadays there is a registry available for the CloudFormation. You can go and use that user guide registry where you can get all the codes. Let me show you that. Think this is the one template. So this is also one link. There is another link where I have the template registry. I will show you that. So you can get all the codes that you want from here. Yeah. So here is where you can go and pick up all the resource types, modules and stuff. So a lot of examples are available here. You can directly deploy the code from this registry here. Okay. But yeah, just practice creating some resources from CloudFormation, and if you have some doubts, you can get back with those doubts. Okay, any questions so far on what we have done today? So I know it is hard to understand at the first go, so but when you practice it, you'll be able to easily understand this. So I thought of covering one more topic, but we have got only 20 minutes. I need at least 1 hour to cover up the next topic. So what we can do is we can try and complete the next topic in the upcoming session. For now, okay, sample. So if there are no questions, I think we will wind up for today. We have just focused on one of the important aspect, which is infrastructure as a code, and that too within AWS. We use CloudFormation to deploy all the resources in a more organized way, and you can use the same code for deploying resources in your non-production and production environment. And wherever you go and deploy it in different region or different AWS account, you will get the same outcome, same output, because you are using the same infrastructure as a code, and it will be very easy to have consistency, and you can deploy resources in a more organized way. So cloud formation is heavily used, so try to practice it whenever you get some time. And in the next session, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, for cloud formation, we are using two languages like
Yeah.
JSON and YAML.
Hmm.
So this JSON and YAML, it can be supportable for multi-cloud like
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Google Cloud and Azure. Both
Yeah,
language
so
we can use, correct?
see, for example, Azure more predominantly uses JSON, and again, if you go for multi-cloud environment, we generally use Terraform, and Terraform has got its own HashiCorp configuration language, and it is different from. But the structure, the content, whatever you are specifying, right? Almost it's all key value format. Okay, see, at the end, whatever you are going to create, it will be specified in this format: the description with key, and the value is the content. Similarly, whatever you are specifying in your YAML or JSON, say as I told you, only these comma, indentation, and the quotes, double quotes, only that will change between the language. Otherwise, whatever the inside content, it's everything the same, not much different. Either it is YAML or JSON or HashiCorp language, the content remains the same. Only thing is the structure that you need to follow while creating the objects or strings or specifying the arrays. It will be a little different from each other. The syntax will be different, but the content will be the same. So for your question, yeah, so Google uses JSON, Azure uses JSON, AWS supports both JSON and YAML, and many organizations they started using HashiCorp Terraform, which uses its own configuration language, which is very much similar to JSON and YAML, not much different.
Stan.
Yes.
So I have a question. Like, if I want to create an infrastructure which connects to my on-prem or the third-party
Uh-huh.
softwares, right?
Uh-huh.
So how do I create a
Yeah.
template
So
using Cloud?
right. So here, even in your cloud formation, you have transit gateway. So you have all the resources, whatever you want to create. So if I go and look at here, so the list here, it doesn't limit us with the basic resources. It gives you option to go and select all the resources, the transit gateway and stuff. And even if you want to create resources on your premises, you can add that code from the sample that you have. For example, let me show you something here. So you've got this transit gateway. The network related services are also available. So direct connect, or so all options are available here. Let me show you that first. So let me find out. So load balancers. So your question is about direct connect and all those things, or whether you want to.
Yeah, about that.
Okay, just a second. VPC, UEW. Network gateway, backup gateway, API gateway. So they should give us an option to search it easily, but let's see, virtual private cloud. So global accelerator is there, load balancing is there, inspector, IoT, yeah, network manager, network firewall. So you have the transit gateway appearing here. If you want to have direct connect, you have it here, connect and attachment. So you have it under your network manager. So I was expecting under virtual private cloud, but they have given it under network manager. But then if in case you want to create something beyond what is listed here, so you cannot use the designer, you can directly use that content under your code and you will be able to do it. And there are certain modules you can add if in case you want to create resources outside of AWS, then you have to specify the module and get it created, like how you do in Terraform. But you have all the network and stuff and available under network manager and network firewall. So transit gateway, your direct connect circuits are available here. So if you want to integrate something for your data transfer, you can also use the connector here. But it doesn't give you option for the third-party resources. It is not a complete list in your designer, but the designer is more useful for when you are creating resources from your AWS platform. But if you want to create something outside of AWS platform, then you have to go via the direct code only.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No problem. So let me stop recording. So I'll be here for a couple of